Okie doke. And welcome everybody to the December 17th, 2024 Human Relations Commission meeting. I am going to share my screen. Oops. Whoa. I have never done that one before. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. Here is our meeting agenda. Carlos, the floor is yours.
Gracias a todos bueno, los que estamos aquí, gracias por acudir a la última reunión del año. Qué bueno que estamos.
Ooh, Carlos, you muted yourself.
Perdón. Buenas tardes a todos, gracias por estar aquí. Y esta es nuestra última reunión del año. Fue un honor este año trabajar con ustedes y damos inicio a nuestra reunión, siendo las 6:12 de la tarde, noche casi ya. Y vamos a ver si tenemos algún ajuste en la agenda. ¿Alguien tiene algún ajuste en la agenda?
Does the LTCHT presentation, is that the human trafficking lab? Okay, gotcha.
Lab to combat human trafficking. I was just trying to
Okay.
squeeze everything into
Okay.
the little columns that we have.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
yes.
Just making sure that's on there.
One thing that I would add would be to discuss the email we just got sent from the Environmental Advisory Board about switching to plant-based.
I didn't get that email, but we'll be curious to hear more about it.
Cool. Carlos, did you get that? I thought they sent it to all of us, but maybe not. I remember seeing a few of us on there.
Sí, lo recibí. Pero sí, lo podemos anexar. ¿En dónde lo podemos anexar, Cristian?
I think that would just be a discussion informational item there so we can tack that on after handbook update.
Ok. Bueno. Gracias, Aaron, por esto. Y vamos a pasar a aprobar las minutas del mes pasado. Entonces, si estamos todos de acuerdo, necesitamos una moción y alguien que secunde.
Motion to approve the November 2024 minutes.
Okay, second.
Perfecto. Levantemos nuestro pulgar o la mano para aprobar. Gracias. Cristian, antes de pasar a los comentarios en línea, creo que vas a dar lo que das antes de los comentarios, ¿no?
Yes, give me 1 second here. Okay, so it looks like we do have one member of the public joining in tonight. So I will run through briefly a few slides here about public participation at city meetings. The city has engaged with community members to co-create a vision for productive, meaningful, and inclusive conversations. This vision supports physical and emotional safety for community members, staff, and board and commission members. 1 second. The light is motion sensitive in this office. And board and commission members, as well as democracy for people of all ages, identities, lived experiences, and political perspectives. For more information about this vision and the community engagement processes, please visit the websites listed on your screen. The following are examples of rules of decorum found in the Boulder Revised Code and other guidelines that support this vision. These will be upheld during this meeting. All remarks and testimony shall be limited to matters related to city business. No participant shall make threats or use other forms of intimidation against any person. Obscenity, racial epithets, and other speech and behavior that disrupts or otherwise impedes the ability to conduct the meeting are prohibited. Participants are required to sign up to speak using the name they are commonly known by, and individuals must display their whole name before being allowed to speak online. Currently, only audio testimony is permitted. So we do not have a sign up sheet. I would just ask if anybody attending is wanting to make public comment. If you can just navigate to the the menu at the bottom of your screen, you should see the raise hand option, and you can select raise hand so we can promote you to a panelist. We'll give just a minute or so. Okay. I'm not seeing any hands raised, Carla, so I do not believe we have anybody wanting to make public comment tonight.
Bueno, entonces pasemos a nuestro siguiente punto, que son temas de acción, pero creo que no tenemos ninguno.
No, sir.
Entonces vamos a la discusión informal, que es el punto 6. Vamos al punto A, hablar de el combate al tráfico humano, la presentación que tenemos pendiente. Creo que Emily nos va a comentar algo y quién más.
Yeah, thank you, Carlos. So, Fikir Christian and I received a response back from Kara about our questions as to whether they would rather present or suggest presenting on the weekend or during the week, and virtually versus in person. And Kara mentioned a few caveats about presenting on the weekend. They try as much as possible not to schedule them on the weekend for their own staff sustainability, but they do make exceptions for audiences of over 100 or so. And April would be the earliest that they could make a weekend workshop work. Moving on to the second, well, I guess a couple other things about the weekend is that their perception of turnout would depend on who the target audience is. So people with 9-to-5 jobs might not come on the weekends because they might be with their kids and might want a break from work. If that's our audience, we might want to target during the week and during business hours. And then other folks folks who work low income jobs might turn out on the weekends. And then during the 9 to 5 hours, they may not be able to attend the training. So those were some considerations about the weekend. Carlos and Aaron, do you want to discuss the timing of the workshop first, or do you want me to move on to summarize Kara's points about the in-person versus remote engagement?
Yeah, I think I'm open to hearing that, and then we can discuss all of it together. Sounds good to me.
Okay. Is that okay with you, Carlos, if I just summarize the rest of their email?
Sí, sí está bien, Emily. Gracias.
Okay, thanks. All right, so in terms of in-person versus remote engagement, not a whole lot of considerations I think that we hadn't talked about. Um, Kara said a lot of people prefer in person, and people can be more engaged for those in person. But then also that remote has some accessibility benefits, and it can also be challenging, on the other hand, for folks to stay engaged when the workshop is online, but that they're very skilled at online facilitation as well as in person. Um, and then they do about 30% of their trainings virtually. And if we decided on a weekend training and we wanted to do it virtually, that's something they could definitely accommodate before April, because another reason for the not committing to weekends is because many of the employees don't live in Denver. So they want to avoid being stuck in the ski traffic, it seems like. Um, last, either way, Kara said there's like a 50 to 75 um, percent rate of people showing up who register. So just something to keep in mind, that even if we get a great registration turnout, that all those folks may not show up. So that's most of what Kara had to say. Um, I think I was left with that communication, and I don't know what Feker thought about it, but I was left thinking that it would be helpful for us to really hone in our audience for the presentation, for the workshop, so that we could better determine factors like, well, is this a better fit for in-person or virtual, or during the day, night, or weekend timing.
Yeah, I don't know that I have too many high-level thoughts. I think most of what you said makes sense. Yeah, I think in person is usually, I just think we're gonna gain a lot more from that. Yeah, weekends versus weekdays either one feels fine to me. And yeah, good to have an idea what they said about the timing, the like how many people usually show up. I'm trying to make sure that I got everything you said. Are there like specific asks? I want to just make sure I'm responding well to.
I guess my personal question is like, who do we want to put this on for? Which I
Right,
think would better answer the question of like what time and when.
right. That's the question. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts first on that, Carlos?
Yo, bueno, para mí, y si lo hacemos, puedo invitar a gente de las comunidades No sé si nos podríamos enfocar en eso, en gente de las comunidades. Sí,
Yeah, people in the community who I'm thinking as well. You know, I think this is just one of those things that's nice. It sounds like we would like our community to be more educated. And so if we just pick people who are well connected in community and make it available, that seems fine to me.
So make it a more broad audience of like kind of snowball outreach of like telling people we think are well connected and then asking them to amplify.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe you've thought more about this than we have. I'm curious what your high level thoughts are.
I think before we met with the lab to combat human trafficking, I had similar thoughts, but then one of the things that Kara brought up was that she's not aware of any work in the school district um, that is addressing human trafficking, so that has me more curious about the school district. But I am curious, Christian and Elizabeth, if like contacting people within the school district falls within our realm of sanctioned actions as commissioners, or is that an action we need approval from city council for?
Elizabeth, I would look to you for
Sure.
some guidance on that one there.
I think, I think if the HRC wants to host it, then certainly we can help make contact, with key leaders at the school district, for invitations, etc. If you want to have more of a conversation about, parents, educators, and what that might look like, their interest level, and if so, their recommendations for, is it an evening? Is it a weekend? What time of year is there kind of room on the calendar from their perspective? I would suggest, and again, Christian, I can, make the intros, maybe checking with some of our own city staff who work really closely with families and some of our nonprofit partners who work in the school as well. So that's pretty easily done. I think you're right to flag that there may be some just strategic communications and checking in on who's reaching out to officials with the school district, but certainly I would start with our own housing and human services staff that work frequently with those families and teachers. We also have a lot of other nonprofit agencies that work with children, that work with parents, some of the populations that at least are thought to be more at risk from human trafficking. So we can definitely help make some of those connections. But it sounds like if that's one of the focal areas, is, students, perhaps older, high school students, I don't know, or educators, parents, just starting with our own HHS colleagues would be good.
Yeah,
Any other thoughts, Christian?
No, that would make sense to kind of start from our internal or innermost orbit and then kind of work out that way. Beginning with who you're likely thinking of with family resource schools, and then kind of like working outward there.
I wonder if we took a both and approach of brainstorming, Carlos and Aaron, from your perspective of the community members you're thinking of inviting, like when, I know Aaron, you said you think either time, any time would work. But Carlos, I'm curious if you think like one of the options was host it during this time, like our meeting time, if you think the weekend would work better, or if you think a midday time would work. I'm curious what from folks that you're thinking about inviting, what sounds good to you.
El fin de semana sería muy difícil para muchas personas, porque si es por la mañana, mucha gente está trabajando. Entonces, para mí lo ideal sería entre semana por la tarde. Y yo creo que si es de 5 en adelante, está bien porque ya a veces a las 5 ya hay gente que ya está desocupada, ya puede asistir a algún evento. Y sí, yo podría trabajar en las gentes de las comunidades, invitarlas a este tipo a este evento. Y ahorita, si lo anexamos, yo me reúno también una vez por mes con una asociación que es de aquí de Boulder, que es CIMO, y ahí puedo también hacer la invitación a todas estas personas.
That would be awesome, Carlos. Thank you. And I'm hearing that it sounds like even late afternoon, evening would be best for the folks you're thinking about inviting. So I think maybe um we could one course of action would be we could check with Kara to see of her availability. I know she said maybe she was going to put February and March or something along those lines for our meeting times down. So we could check to see if that's still the case. And then Christian and Elizabeth, I think if Aaron and Carlos agree, I would like to be put into contact with those HHS employees and run that timing by them to see if that would be an accessible time for this other audience of kind of higher risk groups um, related to school age children. And if, serendipitously, if those two match up, then great. And if not, then we could, my thought is we could do one more general community training, and then have some more discussions with people from the school district about, maybe it is just an introduction that HRC does to members of the school district, or, we can decide from there. Maybe it's not another training, but just sort of continue the school conversation separately from the more community training. Curious how that sounds to you, Carlos and Aaron.
Sounds good to me. I think that makes sense.
Sí, yo creo que para mí también, porque no podemos, o tal vez sí se podría hablar del tema con si nos reunimos con el distrito escolar o con gente de las escuelas. Yo creo que hay muchos padres de familia en las comunidades que a lo mejor participarían, ¿sí? Desafortunadamente yo ya no tengo hijos que están en la escuela, pero sí podría yo enfocarme también en esta situación. Tengo amigos que tienen sus hijos en las escuelas y podría yo también trabajar en esto.
That sounds great, Carlos. Yeah, a both and approach where you're also talking with folks with school-aged kids and reaching that parent demographic. That sounds great. Thank you. So it sounds like our action steps from this conversation are to reach out back to Kara and confirm her availability for February and March HRC meeting time in person. And then also Elizabeth and Christian, if you can make some introductions for me and Feker over email to folks in HHS, that would be great. And then we can discuss maybe through you, Christian, in the interim between meetings, because yeah, I'm not sure if we might have some action steps. Like I could see if the training time gets confirmed, perhaps Carlos, you could begin your outreach before our January meeting, but we'll just have to see, I guess.
Just for clarity, because I'm taking notes as we're talking here. Emily, what you are saying is number one, check back with Kara on potential use of the February or March 2025 HRC dates and times for an in-person presentation. Number one. Number two would be email introductions for the subcommittee working on this, you and Feker, with HHS staff that we previously mentioned to assess sort of the feasibility of that time frame and interest in the presentation. And then step 3 would just be any additional work that would need to happen between those two conversations happening and the actual night of the event. Is that, I got that right? I see you're nodding your
Yes.
head. Okay.
Yes,
Beautiful.
thank you.
No problem. Cool. You can absolutely
Bueno,
make those things happen. Go for it, Carlos.
ok, entonces vamos al punto B, que es el diálogo comunitario. Creo que de esto nos va a hablar quién, Aarón.
Oh, in terms of that, I don't have any update on that. I haven't heard from Nuria, and I was so swamped in school stuff that I hadn't even repinged her. So no update on that since last meeting.
And can you remind us, Aaron, Nuria responded that yes, the city is interested and that they might already be pursuing some work with CU.
Yeah,
that
with CU's difficult dialogues. I don't know if Christian or Elizabeth know any new updates on that, or pretty much just that.
You want me to go ahead or you want to go? So yes, we do have a little bit more information. So we support, the city supports, Nuria supports making contact with the difficult dialogue folks at CU. Sorry, struggling to remember the name. So I think some of the same questions we would offer, staff would offer, apply to the conversation you just had about hosting a workshop or training on human trafficking. So thinking about who you would want to reach out to have participate in some kind of dialogue. Again, not focused on the question about a ceasefire, but more specifically, how people might want to engage with each other in a different way around really challenging topics like that. So if you wanted to have some conversation and kind of hear from each other about some desired outcomes, maybe what types of, community members who from our population in the city you're thinking about might be appropriate or might want to engage in an event like that. And then the next step could well be kind of that Aaron, Christian, myself, if you need other support, would be able to engage with the folks at CU to just, as you wanted to do, talk about agenda and some more of those details and get their input about how they might design collectively with us an event. So that's the update, just basically a green light for us to go ahead and continue conversations with CU.
Cool. And so that's a green light for us, which means Nuria has not initiated those conversations with CU herself.
Correct.
Okay, sweet. Well, I'd be happy to do some follow-up and reach out to Difficult Dialogues on our behalf. And then it sounds like all of us can put some thought towards like who we would want to have included in that conversation. That's kind of what you were saying, right, Elizabeth? Yeah.
Yeah, of anyone who could potentially be interested. Like, do you all as commissioners have thoughts about what comes out of it? How does holding an event like that with CU help affect and impact our community? So just some thoughts. If you wanted to talk about that this evening for a few minutes, that might be helpful for Emily and Carlos. And then Aaron, Christian, and I are happy to support you with those conversations if it lapses into talking about timing and logistics and whatnot.
Cool. Yeah, any thoughts, Emily or Carlos?
My first thought, this is probably obvious, but my first thought is that I think this would be likely a very self-selecting group of people who would be interested in stepping into discomfort and holding space and holding the possibility of being with another person's humanity when someone else has very different beliefs than them. And in my experience from going to other Difficult Dialogue events, I think that they're well equipped to go over some skills of what's required to kind of hold someone's humanity while they may fundamentally disagree on something very important. I guess I do continue to be curious of how we would frame this discussion, just because now, we have the still the genocide going on in Gaza, but we also have the election results. So and I know even before, unfortunately, before October 7th, 2023, there were many issues that fall into this category, but it'll be interesting. Like, I guess I want folks to feel like they're leaving with some tangible skills that they can enact and that they've practiced those skills, and that they're more connected with members of their community. That's of our community, I should say, not reinforcing our silos, but I think that's most of what I would like to say, and I think that's a pretty challenging task to put people out of their comfort zones and still leave connected, but that would be my goal.
Yeah, I think that's a really good goal, and yeah, super in support of that. I think that is ideal, is that we can host an event that brings people together with diverse perspectives, that people maybe feel a little uncomfortable and feel challenged, but leave feeling more connected, feeling like they gain something from it. Any thoughts from you, Carlos? Still muted.
Perdón. Eh, yo estoy un poco, de que necesito saber cómo vamos a manejar este tipo de conversaciones, porque tal vez sí podría conseguir unas dos, tres personas que puedan ir a dar su punto de vista o hablar de esto, pero necesitaría saber cómo vamos a abordar este tipo de pláticas.
Mm. Yeah. Maybe Emily, it seems like you've attended these conversations with difficult dialogues before, so maybe you can speak a little bit more to how you've witnessed them like holding that.
So the one that I attended was last year, and there were two professors, one of them actually from my former communication department, um, and they presented some social scientific research and framed the conversation about how we can engage across difference. So they did maybe a 10 or 15-minute talk, and then they had a couple of different breakout exercises with the people around us where I think we practiced or talked about a time where these skills might have been useful, things of that nature. So I think, Carlos, I don't know how the program would incorporate folks who wanted to come in and speak. I think that would be a good thing, Aaron, for you to bring up. Carlos, I would like to know from you, like, more about what types of things those people might be bringing, whether they be like experiences and or skills about talking across difference. And then Aaron, that would be a good thing to bring to difficult dialogues to say, hey, we have some other people from the community who could also uh, help facilitate this, or who also could speak and put their voices in the space. So Carlos, could you, maybe without identifying them by name, but like, could you tell us a little bit more about the folks who are coming to mind and kind of why they come to mind for you?
Tengo una persona que le gusta abordar este tipo de situaciones, ¿sí? Y la verdad yo creo que sería una persona que estaría dispuesta a entrar en este diálogo. Entonces yo creo que él es una persona que le gusta expresarse y que le gusta entrar en debate y en polémica también. Entonces yo creo que encajaría bien en este tipo de pláticas.
So sounds like maybe he would be a great person to participate.
Mhm.
Sí,
Okay, great. But not necessarily someone that you're thinking about to lead the event, to facilitate the event. Okay.
no,
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, I think that's awesome that you already have people that you think would be great participants, great people that would show up. And yeah, as a recovering debater, Carlos would like to meet this person, but yeah. So sounds like Aaron, um, we, Carlos and I both think this is still an important thing to pursue. Carlos, glad you have someone who's interested, hopefully in coming. Um, Aaron, I would, yeah, just impressed that it's a humanizing conversation. It's not about skirting issues or not being open about our viewpoints, but it's about holding humanity through difference.
Yeah, and I'm trying to understand how exactly we would want to frame the dialogue. And I'm sure the difficult dialogue people will have some insight into this, but it sounds like we're not necessarily like wanting to touch too much on the Middle East, but speak more holistically like what happens in our community when there's tension, or is it like the kind of thing where we want to speak to what happens when there's tension and to like actually touch on some of the things there's tension about?
I think that's a great thing to ask the experts at difficult dialogues.
Mhm.
Um,
Great.
as I mentioned, I do think there are multiple different deeply entrenched binary conflicts happening right now. Understanding that this was brought about by the genocide in Gaza, and also that there are other
Totally. Yeah.
realities people care about in our community.
Yeah. That's a good point. Cool. That feels clear enough that I can, yeah, bring that to a dialogue with difficult dialogues and work with them to see what feels workable given the multitude of different things we have tension about and given the overall issue around the division that happens in our community with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's good to have the conversation with them. And high level in terms of framing, just noting that any successful kind of dialogue framing is about what is it that we in our community can control about our community, and I don't mean control in a, you know, authoritarian manner, but just what is it that we can influence or impact. And so
Totally.
it is kind of straying into territory around, specific policies at an international level is probably not the way to go, right? But just how is it that people want to act toward each other? Where is that tension? What are some of those skills which you shared earlier, Emily, as an outcome that people might want and need in order to be able to disagree in a way that feels productive and constructive and supportive. If not get through disagreements, but at least be able to talk to each other and listen to each other in a way, as you said, that enables people to hold their humanity and see it.
Great.
But yeah,
And
I mean, just think not kind of going into the area of the
Yep.
policies,
Yep.
but
Heard.
the impacts.
Great. And did Nuria forward any contact information for the person at Difficult Dialogues? Otherwise, I can probably find that.
Christian, did we have that from earlier communication? We can talk offline maybe about that, but
Cool.
yes.
If there was anything in that like email thread, or if it was just like online through my online research that I found the staff members. I can look through what we have and then send over anything I'm able to send to Aaron, anything I'm able to locate in the emails, or whatever web page I was looking at.
Perfect.
Cool.
Thank you.
That's helpful. Thanks. Cool. I think that feels probably complete for that topic, unless anybody else has anything. Cool.
No, yo creo que está todo bien para mí.
Cool. What's next on the agenda?
La actualización del manual del HRC. Creo que aquí también es Emily la que nos va a dar una actualización.
Yeah, no, also ask Christian and Elizabeth to fill in any gaps that I missed, but we met last week or the week before with the city attorney, and we discussed a work plan, a 3-month work plan. So we'll all be taking the lead on sections, and then writing comments, and then I think it was maybe Christian or Elizabeth who will take the lead on drafting the edits to the actual document. And then we will have a draft to you all by the March meeting. Is that accurate?
Yep, the goal would be to have a final that we can get to the group ideally a little bit before the March meeting so commissioners can look at it, and then we can approve it at that meeting and have it ready for a new commissioner who would be coming on board in April. And we have a workable document that folks within the city and Emily outside of just doesn't have a bouldercolorado.gov email address. We had a little hiccup there, but we worked through that, and so we can all collaborate on one document, which is terrific. I think that's probably about as new and good on that topic. I don't think there's a whole lot going on. We're kind of going to be in the thick of it in the next couple months here.
A mí me gustaría ahorita darle las gracias a Emily y a Aaron por estar trabajando arduamente en este tipo de conversaciones y diálogos y todo esto. Me parece muy interesante y gracias a ustedes dos por liderar estas situaciones que se están suscitando y que estamos llevando a cabo. Gracias. Entonces pasamos al punto 7, actualizaciones de
We have
el status de la ciudad.
one topic that Aaron wanted to add to the discussion items, and that was the email Aaron from an environmental advisory board member on defaulting to plant-based food.
Yep. So, Carlos, you said you saw that. Emily, I guess you didn't, but basically we got an email from Hannah Davis of the Environmental Advisory Board that said the Environmental Advisory Board is switching to a plant-based default for all of their meals. Plant-based default means they default to plant-based, but there's still an option for meat and dairy if people express that preference, but just having a default as that. Environmental Advisory Board is doing that, and they think it sets a really good standard in terms of just being more sustainable within our city work. Personally, I'm very open to the idea. I don't eat entirely plant-based, but I definitely enjoy plant-based, and I think it does set a good precedent. So I'm very open to it and in favor of it, but would love to hear how others are responding to that.
What do you think, Carlos?
Bueno, la verdad, yo tampoco soy muy, así de comer, yo soy muy carnívoro, me gusta la carne también, pero sí me gustan las verduras, me gustan también las plantas. Entonces sería un buen comienzo y además de que estoy dispuesto a que quiero bajar de peso, ¿verdad? Ese va a ser mi meta para el año que entra, a ver si puedo. Entonces sería una buena opción de escuchar sobre este tipo de comidas que tienen ellos. Y pues tal vez podíamos basarnos en algo así para nuestras dietas.
Thank you, Carlos, especially for your openness, considering that you love meat and and eat it for your diet. I eat mostly plant-based anyways, so I'm open to it. One question I have, Aaron, for the environmental committee is what places they go to for vegan food. And I don't know, Elizabeth and Christian, what our budgets are for the catering. So those would be my two questions um, for them and for you too.
I imagine you have some idea of what this entails, Christian.
I actually have about as much information as you all do. As you're sort of discussing this, I'm wondering if there might be some more guidance from the uh, environmental advisory board on like how to put this into practice, because what I got from the communication was it's not going completely plant-based, but the majority or more than a majority, but not entirely plant-based. So I would be looking for some more information on like the nuts and bolts of how to make it happen. But if it is something that the group would like to pursue, we can definitely get some more guidance and put it into action.
Mm-hmm.
Just add to that briefly. So, I think it would be very easy if you all want to go that route. Typically, we work with our fantastic colleague Tiffany in Housing and Human Services, who helps set up most of the events that we have, including for boards, commissions, committees, or at least advises other staff. And we have a very broad and kind of diverse range of dietary needs and preferences among our staff, and certainly among all of you all. If you came to those of you, and the three of you did come to the event that we had on December 4, you'll recognize there was a lot of options there. So she and we are pretty well versed in kind of where to go and how to make a good meal that meets everybody's needs. So I don't think that's a problem at all. Just let us know what you prefer, and we can make that happen.
No sé, Elizabeth y Cristian, si podría ella venir para la siguiente reunión que sería en enero a hablarnos sobre esto.
Now you're on mute, Aaron.
So what if for our next in-person meeting in January, we just asked to do a plant-based meal for that one meal, and then we can all be like, does this work for us? And if it works for us, then we can commit to doing it going forward. Yeah.
Would still have the preference to say, just like if you fill out a registration form and it asks you, do you have any dietary preferences? You could still say that you
Yeah.
want meat, fish, what have you. It's just that would be the exception, not the other way around, is how I'm understanding the
Yeah, I think that's
communication
right.
from the board. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So we could just say, let's plan for that, and then when y'all are doing your communication to everybody, you can say, does anybody have any needs for a non-plant-based meal? Because that's our default. And then we can do that. And then we could communicate back to the environmental advisory board that, sweet, we like the idea. We're going to give it a trial run in January. And if everybody seems on board, then we'll make it our default. Cool. Sounds like all three of us are in agreement. Cool.
Bueno, entonces pasamos al punto 7, que son las actualizaciones del personal de la ciudad. Y tenemos 3 puntos en este.
Jump in, Christian.
Yes. Sorry, I am having. Are you all still seeing the PowerPoint that's up? Okay. Well, the first update is Elevate Boulder. Elizabeth, do you want me just to share what's on the screen and you can add anything, or do you have anything else that you would like to?
Just a smidge of context, maybe. So I can just take this one. So,
Sure.
Elevate Boulder is the city's guaranteed income or direct cash assistance pilot project, and it is not a project that the HRC has been directly involved in. However, back when we were designing the project and then when it first launched in January 2024, so just earlier this year, we did have a request at the time from the HRC to come and just present about what those design features were, who was eligible, and a little bit about, how people were selected, et cetera. So this is just a very quick follow-up to that. We, on December 12th, so just last week, released the interim evaluation report that captures participants' experiences at the 8-month mark from a survey that people could fill out if they wanted to. It was not required. And then some focus groups for participants that were held in October 2024. So it's just good information in still the early months of the project to see what changes the project has already made for participants. And there are several impacts already that show great promise for hopefully what's to come. And that includes people are better able to meet their family's food needs, so less food insecurity, better ability to pay bills on time without incurring, late charges, late fees, et cetera. Increased mental health and psychological wellness. And there were also notes in there about wellness. Also, a vast majority of participants indicated that they feel that they're going to be better able to meet their financial goals as a result of the project. Some of the elements of the project regarding longer-term financial security, it's a little early to determine yet for participants to know exactly how that aspect of their lives have been impacted. And so there will be another survey administered by our consultants at the 20th month of the program, so about a year from now. And we're hoping that at that time participants will report that they are experiencing other types of financial stability as well. So the information and the report link are on the Elevate Boulder webpage, project webpage on the city website. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Cool. Okay. I have the next couple here. So, beginning yesterday, the city began accepting applications for vacancies on the boards and commissions. We'll accept applications from yesterday until the end of January. There's a flyer that I will send out to you all so you can share it with your networks. What is new this year is there's going to be an open house where current boards and commission members can share about their experiences. That will be taking place on January 14th from 4:30 to 6:30 at the municipal building. There will be some more details on that, and I'm sure that will be tapped to see if any of you would like to participate. So look out for some follow-up from me once the staff who are coordinating that effort get in touch. So if you're open to doing that, we would love to have you more to come on that one. This round, I know Emily technically has a term ending in March, and then JH is reaching the end of his 5-year term. So technically we have 2 vacancies, although Emily, I believe, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I believe you have mentioned previously that you would be interested in continuing on. And we would just need to figure out how to make that happen and go for it, Aaron.
Wasn't
Sorry about
Emily's
that.
wasn't Emily's a 2-year term?
What
Like-
I saw on the website, what we have on the website, I think ends in 2024, if I am remembering correctly.
I
can double check
wonder
on
if
that.
I wonder if that's a typo on the website, because when me and Emily were applying, I believe the wording was that there was a 2-year term and a 5-year term. And I believe
Okay.
it's supposed to be that every year one person times out. And so I don't think it would make sense for JH and Emily to time out of the same year. That's just how I'm interpreting it, but
Yep.
yeah.
You were there and I was not. So let me double check on that and make sure that that's the case. Either way, we will be looking for one, definitely one member, potentially a second, but TBD on that. To be determined. I will find some more information for us here.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, that would be helpful, Christian, because if my term is up, then I'm assuming I would need to reapply, correct? Yeah, so I would just that would be really helpful if you could find that information.
I
So
will
can
get that for you
apply if
before I head
necessary.
out of town this week, so we have some clarity on that.
Thank you.
No problem. All right. Anything else on boards and commission recruitment? I'll send out the flyer to you all so you have it. Cool.
It's like just one thing. Anything that is not automatically translated, Carlos, already, we can help with that. Any information on the city's webpage can just be toggled from English to Spanish. But at the moment, I don't think we have the flyer in Spanish. I did reach out about that, Christian, unless you saw it. But we can, anyway, if you have somebody in mind, and in any case, we'll be working on that.
Yep, I'm looking at the flyer that got sent over right now. And it's just the English version, so we can make sure there's a Spanish copy. Cool. Right. Next up, we do have looks like Boulder Bridge House will still be doing the homeless memorial, the Day of Remembrance. This had been previously listed as December 19th, which would be this Thursday. When I went to double check on that on their website, it now says to be determined. So I'm not 100% sure what went on with the what's gone on with the scheduling. So I reached out to somebody over at the organization to see if I can just get some clarity in case any of you all are interested in attending, or if you all know, please please share now so others may know. And then just wanted to give you all a preview of the Martin Luther King Jr. Day events that will be going on. The Human Relations Fund specifically is funding 3 events. Bear with me just a sec. I got some descriptions earlier here that I can read out for you. This motion sensor thing is very interesting in this office in particular. Okay. So on Sunday, January 19th, there will be 2 events. One, the location is still being worked out, but it's celebrating the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., 30 years. Dream makers, mile markers, and milestones. What's your dream? And this is going to be put on by the Second Baptist Church of Boulder and will include a keynote speaker, Cheyenne Webb, and local performances to inspire and educate attendees on Martin Luther King Jr.'s message of love and freedom for all. And then the other that is occurring on January 19th is called Freed by the Hum of the Drum, and it will be from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. at Michantli, which is at 1750 30th Street, Unit 22 in Boulder. This event will feature a performance by the Mokombo Ensemble from the Baobab Foundation, showcasing Western African drum and dance. There will be a spoken word poetry performance reflecting on Dr. King's legacy and a closing dance party with Off the Cuff, which is an all-black funk band. And then on Monday, January 20th, Modus Theater is putting on an event called The Road to Freedom, a celebration of theater, music, and poetry in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. This will include poetry by Boulder-based poet Norma Johnson, celebrating the renaming of the portion of US 36 that runs through Boulder in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. There will be modest monologues from Black, transgender, immigrant, and formerly incarcerated leaders, and music by the Reminders, highlighting ongoing struggles at the intersection of race, poverty, and identity. And Modus Theater will also recognize key advocates in the fight to continue Dr. King's legacy. So 3 super cool events going on that weekend. I will share the information that I have with you all, and then anything else that I get, make sure I push out to the group so you all can attend. Right, that is what I got there for community events.
Gracias, Cristiana, Ana Elizabeth. Entonces vamos al punto 8, que es las actualizaciones de los comisionados. Yo nada más, mi actualización sería de la reunión más grande que tuve fue en la que tuvimos con la Oficina de Relaciones Humanas, donde estuvimos los 3 que estamos aquí, más Elizabeth y Cristian, ¿verdad? Y he tenido otras reuniones pequeñas, pero no muy importantes.
No major updates for me.
Okay, thanks, Carlos. Thanks, Aaron. My updates, I was able to go to Modus Theater's How Are You Really playback presentation on Sunday, and that was followed by a beautiful violin concert by Anthony Salvo. And that was, both events were really powerful. The playback theater is something we've talked about in relation to the strategic comprehensive plan update for the Boulder County. And then they also do the performances for the public so that it was processing kind of election and holiday related human experience. So that was really, really meaningful. That was at the library on Sunday. And then I wanted to lift up a community resource that I feel like it's definitely utilized by a lot of people, but I think could use more just exposure. It's called AccuDetox, and it's a detox protocol developed in, I can't remember, but developed in Harlem, New York. And it's specifically an addiction intervention using acupuncture points, but even for people not in active addiction or in recovery, it's very good for stress reduction and sleep, anxiety. And they actually have, I don't know, Krishnan, if you can put in the notes for the meeting, they actually have free clinics like almost every night of the week in Longmont, Lafayette, quite a few in Boulder. So that I was coming from that today. It's right down the street from where I live, and it's such a amazing resource. Thank you, Elena. Yeah, I think I've seen you at some events. Um, yeah, and they also, thank you, Elena, for mentioning, they also will train you up to give give the treatment to others if that's of interest to you. So just such an amazing resource. The person who runs it also does a lot of like, I don't know what to call it, but support for folks in recovery. She runs a group called Natural Highs out of the space on Spruce Street here. So yeah, just I feel so grateful to have that resource right next to me. And I do, as I said, I do think a lot of people take advantage, but I think both from a perspective of if you feel stressed out or you need addiction support, really helpful community. And then also if you're looking for nonprofits to donate to at the end of the year, also think a very worthwhile local nonprofit. So that's my update.
Ahorita que mencionas esto de la acupuntura o la Q-Detex, Emily, nosotros dentro de los conectores nos han estado dando, durante varios meses nos estuvieron dando esto y sí, como dices, ayuda mucho, sí, y pues es importante que sepamos esto de la de esta desintoxicación porque es muy buena. A veces la necesitamos. Sí, a mí me ha ayudado mucho y pues espero seguirla tomando.
I'm glad that you all have also had access to that resource. It's really amazing.
Pues bien, vamos a pasar a nuestro punto 9, que es el follow-up items. Tenemos algo aquí, Cristian, no sé.
Yep. So this would be follow-up items for after this meeting, and bear with me just a sec. What I have here is the subcommittee working on the Lab to Combat Human Trafficking presentation. It's going to reach back out to Kara with the lab to ensure the dates, times, and availability for the February or March, potential February or March event. As well, Elizabeth or I will make a connection, email connection for that subcommittee with city staff who are connected with the school district, so you can begin conversation there. I am going to find the contact information for the CU Difficult Dialogues staff or team and get that over to the subcommittee working on the community dialogue project. So over to Aaron. And the handbook update subcommittee will continue meeting and working on said handbook update. I feel like I'm missing one. Oh, I believe we discussed potentially following up with the Environmental Advisory Board member who reached out. I did not catch if anybody volunteered to do that.
Yeah, I will send them an email. I was gonna say, basically saying we appreciate the work they're doing, and we like the idea, and that we're gonna do a trial run of it in January. Ideally when more of our team is present, whose input is valuable for us. And assuming that we all like it, then we will probably make it a go-to thing. And yeah, that sounds good to everyone. And then Elizabeth and Christian sounds like we're all good to have that taken care of for January meeting. Cool.
Yep, absolutely. Cool. Those are the follow-up items I have. Am I missing anything to the folks on the screen, commissioners? Elizabeth?
Sounds like you got it.
Cool.
Creo que son todos los puntos de nuestra reunión. Creo que nos vamos a ir un poco temprano el día de hoy. Yo solamente les quiero desear que tengan una bonita Navidad, que la pasen muy bien con sus familias y que tengan un maravilloso año nuevo, ¿sí? Y nos vemos aquí el próximo año. Gracias a todos. Entonces les voy a pedir una moción para terminar nuestra reunión.
Motion to
So
adjourn
moved.
today's meeting.
I second the motion.
Thank you so much, Carlos. Thank you, everyone. Happy holidays.
Gracias a todos, que tengan buena
Everyone,
noche.
Happy New Year.
Gracias,
Gracias, thank you.
Elena.